An intense battle between the two begun. Hello fellow knights, kings, queens and men, let me tell you the story of a brave, young man who wanted to be someone else than everyone else was. Someone who could grow an empire and name it however he wanted to name it. Let me tell you about a man, named Sub. It was a sunny Sunday morning on the field as Sub woke up on his private island, as he does every single day, and he was thinking to himself, I need to change things up. So the first thing he did when he woke up was look around his house for this magic carpet, which he found within the first few seconds. He stepped on it and got it in his pocket. He pulled it out and he started flying straight away, over the lands of his enemies, looking around for possible kings which he could later on battle to claim more land of his own. As he was flying around on the magic carpet, he thought to himself, hold on a minute, I will never defeat these people if I keep my castle as it is right now. I need to upgrade it and I need to that as fast as I can. And that's exactly what he did. He started building as much stuff as he possibly could without even thinking about what everything was and what everything would do. He simply didn't care. So he started out by randomly building the clone factory, which he needed to make clones of himself so that all of his enemies would be crushed by Sub himself. In a way, he went straight for some upgrades while he was at it. He also picked the color brown because at the time of building, he was thinking to himself what color would the enemies fare, and then he came up with a brilliant idea. He always knew that if he saw a bear in the wild, he would be scared, and the color of a bear is brown, so he went with brown. Once the factory was complete, Sub was satisfied. He liked the structure, he wanted the best of all. And then, when he was building his empire, the battle began. Sub was thinking, oh yes, here we go. My first battle, I hope my men do really well in this epic, large-scale battle. Look at that. Isn't that what you call a massive battle for victory? That's my men right there. Who? Go men. Okay, maybe it could use some more men, I can agree on that. Men, go support your clones. And so they did. Sub's men ran straight at the fearsome enemies ahead of them, and after a few minutes of watching the big battle, he got bored of it and he went on with building the castle. He simply just walked away, having no idea what would happen to his brave knights who fought in his name. No, you see, Sub wanted more and more and more and more. He wanted everything, so he went to check on his gems and he took a look at what you could do with gems. Little did he know he didn't have any. Also, he got glitched on the gems button, but that wasn't a big deal because he fixed it in no time. Once he got out of the glitch, he wanted to make an addition to his castle, but before he knew it, he was stuck on the building button as well. He got out of the glitch and he started building his next structure, being the main base. He made the walls with pride, and as they grew taller, Sub realized that he was out of resources. That was very bad because without resources, he could not create the empire he had been dreaming of for the past 15 years. Sub felt as if he had lost the battle already, almost giving up on his dreams and future. He had no idea what he was going to do without resources. He was lost and didn't know what to do. But then, Sub got an idea. Without telling anyone about it, Sub found a secret stash of gems that had been a secret for a very long time. No one in the history of mankind found it before, and it was all laying behind Sub's castle. Little did Sub know that once he had all the gems he could possibly think of, it would draw lots of attention of the enemies. Anyway, after 5 years, Sub thought to himself, yes, I did it. I can now resume building my empire. And so he did. He went straight to the gem spot and started building everything that was available at that time. He got all of the pets he wanted in his castle, one of them being the cutest penguin ever to have lived. When he got the penguin, he wanted to see him very badly to see how cute he was, so he ran straight to it, and oh my, was it was so cute. He even had a hat on. Once he upgraded his main base, he needed a foundation for his working grounds, and so he started out by building a storage for all the ores he would collect in the future. As he was building all of this, his surrounding enemies were preparing an attack. Little did Sub know, he had a fight coming to his doorstep, but he could not have cared less. Sub just kept on building and expanding his castle. He even made a rainbow pickaxe that must have been one of the highlights in his life. He also thought the name Frosty didn't fit the penguin, so he renamed him to Eric because Eric is a boss name. At least that's what Sub thought at that time. When renaming the penguin, Sub noticed some enemies already trying to break down his castle. Sub knew he had to do something about it, and so he went straight to the building board again to build a massive army. Little did Sub know, he didn't have the resources to do so. And believe it or not, but once again, Sub got an idea. Soon after his 3-year idea worked, he found out that he could create baby clones. Yes, that is correct, baby clones. When Sub saw it, he was so surprised and happy that he started producing them straight away. Even his penguin thought it was epic. By the way, in case I forgot to tell you, he renamed his penguin back to Frosty because after a bit of time he didn't like the Eric anymore. And yes, he could make giants now as well. Frosty liked it too. After creating the baby clones, Sub went to take a walk around the castle to admire how well it was doing. Once he started to walk around, he noticed that his empire was under attack by an old enemy. He immediately started running towards his secret possession. Well, it wasn't that secret because it was stored in the wide open, but still, let's just go with secret. He got the rainbow axe. He grabbed it out of the holding cell and he started swinging it around, but he noticed that it had no effect on the enemies at all. He was not doing any damage. He tried very hard to do some damage, but it just didn't work, and because of that, he needed to expand his arsenal with much better weapons of destruction. So that's what he did. He expanded the armory a lot, and completed the construction on his main base too, making it more defensive than ever before. He basically purchased everything that was available at that time, and he did it with pride because he knew a war was coming, and he had to be prepared for anything. His castle was looking really good. But then, right at the moment he was going to fight back, even more troops attacked him. Sub had no idea where his large force was coming from, but he did know he needed a better weapon than his current one, so he ran as fast as he could to the armory to get a better weapon. And guess what he got? That's right, a lightsaber. At first he failed at grabbing it, but he nailed it on the second try. At this point, Sub was able to defend himself after running away from the enemy for a long time. He got his lightsaber out and started attacking the enemy, but in no time, reinforcements showed up. Frosty was running for his life too. As he was slowly running out of breath, he got an idea. He knew that the building process of the giant was near completion, so he thought to himself, if only I could distract these guys until the building process of my giant is done. And once it was complete, he released a massive clone version of himself, who was ready to take on all of the enemies who were trying to get him. There was one thing that stood out though, and that was the size of the giant's head. I mean, look at it. That's just not right. However, the giant was very brave and did exactly what Sub wanted him to do. Then Sub got the idea to get on the roof because the enemies could not get there and they would just wait for him downstairs. That way the giant could catch up on them and he could fight them, and that's exactly what happened. Eventually Sub got tired of watching his men fight the bad guys, but soon enough there were 3 enemies around him and he had to go back on the roof. Then, luckily for him, more clones showed up and they fought the enemies until it was a weird first fight, to say at least. So, after the first fight being finished, Sub was really tired, but that was all good because now that the fight was over, he could focus on the less important stuff, such as checking out new pets and other cool stuff. He went to check out the Dino, which was pretty cool. Also, he named the Dino Fred because Fred is a boss name, just like Eric was back in the day. The Dino followed him around as he went to check out the upstairs of his main base. Nothing really special was to be found there, but there was one thing in particular Sub found interesting, and those were the suits. This one wasn't all that good though, because his head was gone. So he just switched back to the regular Sub because let's be honest, the normal Sub is the best. After that, he went and took another walk around his castle, just to see if everything was still going as usual. He saw some weird guy in the distance and he tried to attack him, but after a few tries Sub came to the conclusion that he meant to harm, so he left him alone at the rock. When Sub returned to his castle, he saw something really epic. He noticed a board standing next to his clone generator that gave him the option to produce flying clones. Can you believe that? No, neither could Sub. But if Sub paid a bit of attention to the description of the products he purchased earlier today, he would have known that all of this would be possible. Anyway, right after that, Sub got attacked again. This time, it was lethal. Sub died. Soon after he died, he came back to life. He knew that that could not happen again, because dying in front of all your men is the worst that can happen to a king. He knew that he had to step up his game in order to win the whole thing, so that's exactly what he started doing. He went straight to the building board to check if anything could use any improvements or additions, but for some reason, everything he needed was already there. Maybe he just didn't choose all of it, he thought to himself. He went back to his private estate in the sky to get some gadgets which he could then use to spy on his enemies. He got on his magic carpet again and started flying. Of course, he had to check if the little dino was following him around, but that was no problem. The dino ran across the rainbow. He mentioned a few things, one of them being that the enemy who killed him before is still growing strong and has a lot of troops on standby. Another thing he noticed was that another enemy, who had been living across the field, literally had nothing. Everything was gone, so that guy wasn't a threat anymore. Sub also noticed a strange teleporting feature, teleporting him straight from the far side of the island, back to his home. That was pretty handy because that way he didn't have to fly all the way back on his magic carpet. When he was back home, he knew he had to act fast. He grabbed his sword and went out into the field. He knew that if he dealt any damage it would help him out in the future. He found this weird guy in the middle of nowhere which he could not even hit, so that must have been a ghost or something. I don't know. Anyway, after a few minutes of walking he stumbled upon an enemy castle. His giant was there too. Soon enough Sub knew he had to start a fight, and that's what he did. He attacked the king. And with great success because he killed him in no time. But that wasn't enough. There was more damage to be done, and so he kept fighting and fighting, but just as Sub got a second life, so did the other king. An intense battle between the two begun. Ending bad for Sub. After losing another battle, Sub almost lost it. He could not think of anything worse happening to him at this point, but a long time ago he learned a lesson he would never forget. That lesson was to never give up no matter what you come across in life. Well, in his case it would be death too, but that doesn't matter all too much. The point is that Sub did not give up at all. He started to expand his army once again with a new giant and more clones. And while he was doing all of that, he went back to his private estate in the sky to see if he had any gadgets laying around who could possibly help him in combat so that he could demolish his enemies the next time he got into a fight. Soon enough he found something very strange, something that could potentially change the way we all think about life. He found a table. That's right, he found a strange table that was capable of throwing itself in the direction of enemies. At first Sub thought it was very strange, but then, after trying this thing out for a second time, he noticed how it worked. Sub thought the table thing was not all that practical because it could accidentally hit one of his own men, so he put it away and went back to his estate in the sky, looking for something else. This time he found two awesome new gadgets. First of all, this. I think this doesn't need all that much explaining. It made him jump very high, which was very handy because he could use it to evade incoming attacks, or he could use it as a quick escape tool. It was not all that useful for an attack though. The second thing he got was really cool. It was a motorcycle. A motorcycle in a time of knights and giants. Can you believe it? Well, Sub did, and he went off racing through the battlefield. Take a look at this amazing ride. His biggest enemy left the field because he was afraid of the motorcycle. Sub was distracted, and then, well, this happened. Pretty awkward. With Sub's biggest enemy leaving, it took a huge pain off of Sub's shoulder. Now he was the strongest of them all. He thought to himself he could now relax and lay back, watching as his clones would dominate the battlefield, not having to worry about anything. That was the life he always wanted. But for some reason, seeing his clones fight brought a feeling into Sub's heart, a feeling saying that he needed to go and help them out. And so, without a single doubt, Sub left his castle behind and ran towards his clone army to help them fight. Suddenly, he got teleported back to his house out of nowhere. To this day, I think it was because of dark magic. I have no idea though. Anyway, Sub got his jumping gadget out and started to run back towards his troops because he knew they needed all the help they could get. But then out of nowhere a guy called NPC showed up and started attacking Sub. Of course Sub fought back. He even killed him with the help of his clones, but before he knew it, he joined a bigger battle than he had ever seen before. Thousands of men fighting over one land. It was intense, scary and insane all at the same time. Sub's Otterline was rushing as he ran back and forth to his base trying to win it all. He even saw a random Mario coin. Sub thought he was going insane for a second, but still, he kept running and running. He then noticed that all of his clones were gone, while he was being chased by a whole army of enemy knights. He could not win this fight. He had to run for his life, and that is what he did. He left all of his belongings behind, and ran for his long-lived life, towards the big ship. Sub knew he had no other option than what he was about to do. It was the right thing to do. He was not going to get captured or killed by the enemy. This was his only way out. This was the story of a brave knight, who became a king and never gave up. This was the story, about a man named Sub.